Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my July 2026 reading wrap-up. If you're not already aware, I do weekly entertainment wrap-ups of everything I read, watch, and listen to, but today we're just talking about the books and mostly the stats from July. I'm going to start with my nerdy hardcore stats and charts and then get into what I read. However, if you haven't watched one of these videos this year, I have started doing them a little bit differently. I used to go into more depth about every single one of the books. However, as I already mentioned, I already do that in my weekly wrap-ups. So I've decided for these videos, I'm mostly talking about the stats, and then I will go through what I read from least favorite to most favorite for the month, but I'm not going to go into great detail. I do, however, down below have a link to every single video where I talk about every single specific book, so you can feel free to check that out there. Also, I put chapter markers in all of my videos, so if you need to skip over anything or go back to anything, all of that is down below. While you're checking out the description, make sure that you're subscribed, because sometimes YouTube likes to unsubscribe people just for funsies. Click the like button. If you're on mobile, hit that hype feature. Do whatever you need to do. And as a reminder, at the end of the video, I go over my prompt for Read Queer all year, as well as how I'm doing on the bingo board from hell. So make sure to stick around for that. I read 22 books for a total of 6,613 pages. That takes into account converting audiobook minutes to pages, so 3,331 of those pages were actually about 105 hours of audio. The age breakdown of these books was 19 adult books, 2 YA books, and 1 middle grade book. I read 18 novels, 3 anthologies, and 1 graphic novel. This month, the biggest chunk of what I read was fantasy, horror, and mystery thriller, followed by nonfiction, romance, contemporary, classic, and historical fiction. If you adjust by page count, not too much changes. More than half of these books were from the library, but I also read a couple from NetGalley, one that was free, and another I already owned. I read 11 audiobooks, 5 paperbacks, 3 hardcovers, and 3 ebooks. Most of my books were in the 200 to 399 page range, and the majority were published this decade. The majority of these books were written by women, but the protagonist genders were a little bit more diverse. In terms of setting, half were set in the US, but I had other reads set in the UK, other worlds, Algeria, Mexico, Qatar, Spain, and Canada. In terms of diversity of subject matter, a bunch were queer or intersectional. I had some to do with race, disability, religion, a couple were translated, and some had no discernible diversity to speak of. In terms of star ratings, this month I had 2 3-star reads, 2 3.5-star reads, 8 4-star reads, 7 4.5-star reads, and 3 5-star reads. Let's start with the lowest rated read and work our way up to the highest, shall we? My first 3-star read this month was The Stranger. This is the classic book that I read this month, and this is about a man who lives in Algeria and some terrible people he knows and some terrible circumstances that happen. After that, we have Confessions of the Fox. This is about a trans man who finds this manuscript and goes on an adventure, and it's sort of told from his perspective, but also the perspective of what was going on in the manuscript. The form for this one didn't really do much for me, which is weird because I usually like stories that take place within stories, but this one was just a little bit off for me. On my 3.5-star reads, the first one being Books, Iced Coffee, and A Side of Dragons. This one was the graphic novel that I read this month. It was very quick and easy to go through. I think this one doesn't actually come out until next month. I did read this one as an arc through NetGalley, but it is just as cute and sweet and sapphic as you might guess from just looking at the cover. My other 3.5-star read this month was Red X. This is a horror book that takes place in Toronto. This one actually takes place in increments of 8 years. We're getting these vignettes between these different characters, and we're sometimes catching up with them 8 years after the last time we checked in on them. Next, we have my 4-star reads, always the biggest category of those reads, and the first one is the A icon, which I'm just now realizing sounds like I'm saying the A icon, but that's what the book title is. I didn't make the rules. This one is talking about AI, how it's so popular nowadays, and how there's basically hype people, and if we just keep making fun of it, maybe tech bros will stop doing it. Next, we have Witches. This is one of the 2 books that I read this month that was translated, and this one has to do with 2 different characters who are both written in the first point of view, so you're alternating chapters between these 2 different characters, and once you know that, it makes it a lot easier to realize, oh, I'm at this character's point of view, oh, I'm in this character's point of view. That being said, one of them is very old, has lived a very interesting life, and the other one is a journalist who is definitely interviewing her about this life. Next, we have The Familiar. This is a standalone novel set in Spain around the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and our main character has magic, which is obviously bad for her, given she's in a book set during the Spanish Inquisition. Next, we have Julie Chan is Dead. This is about a girl named Julie Chan who has a twin, although she didn't grow up with her. They were actually separated when they were young because their parents died. Her twin went off to live with this very affluential family. They've given her everything she could ever want, whereas Julie stayed with her aunt, who didn't really like her, abused her, stole stole from her, all of those types of things. She's always really wanted to reconnect with her twin, however, the one time they've met in adulthood, it didn't really go that well, so it seems really weird when she gets a strange phone call from her twin and it goes from there. Next, we have The Princess Trap. This is about a woman who is just minding her own business on her birthday when this really hot guy comes to the place where she works. She ends up going on a date with him, and before she knows it, she is fake engaged to him, and oh yeah, he's a prince. This was delightful. I very much enjoyed it. Next, we have A Marvelous Light. This one takes place in the UK. It's another fantasy book, but it's set in a world where there is magic, but not everybody knows about it, and one of the guys in this book actually ends up accidentally having to be told about it because he's kind of in a ministry position where he needs to know about it. And before they can just wipe his memory and get somebody more appropriate for the role, there's a curse put on him, and that needs to be lifted before they can do anything else. Next, we have Crafting for Sinners, which is a horror book that takes place in about 24 hours, probably less than that actually. And it all starts because this one character used to work at the church-owned craft store in their very small town, however was let go from that position because she also happens to have a girlfriend. And when she goes there for craft supplies one night, things go terribly, terribly awry. Speaking of queer horror, this month I also read Fabulous Bodies, which came out this month. This is by Chuck Tingle. This was fantastic. This one has to do with a character who by day is an influencer and by night actually steals dead bodies for whatever reason the people who are employing her to do it do this. Sometimes they want them for target practice, sometimes they want them for other things. She doesn't really judge, she just does the stealing. And even though my math isn't that great, I know enough to know that 2 + 2 = 4 when her favorite celebrity dies and she's a body snatcher, she's gonna be hired to snatch that body. One of my 4.5-star reads, the first one being The Transition. This is about a trans guy who has just gotten his top surgery, he's still in high school, and then also there's this weird rumor going around about these animal attacks, which may or may not be a werewolf, and may or may not attack him, and he might have to be dealing with that. Next, we have the middle grade book that I read this month, which is A Mango-Shaped Space. This is about a kid who is 13 and has synesthesia and has to come to terms with that and let the people in her life know about that because she tried to tell people when she was 8. Nobody really believed her, and she's been living with it ever since, and it's making math really difficult. Next, we have Bromantasy, which the tagline for this one tells you all you need to know. 2 heroes, 1 brain cell. I absolutely love these boys. They're clearly in love with each other at the very beginning of the book. They've been living in the same cottage on a farm for a decade together. Something happened about a decade ago, which is the only reason they're not together, and they end up having to go on a quest together, and maybe instead of just wrestling out their feelings, they actually talk about them. After that, we have Fire Watching, which is the first in a detective series. This is about a gay detective who is basically a one-man cold case unit, and he really wants to solve these cold cases to get back in the better graces because something happened in his career that set him back a little bit. Unfortunately, after being given the opportunity to work on this cold case that is now has a fresh new lead, he realizes that he actually has a history with one of the main suspects, which is not great. After that, we have That's Not My Name. This one is in 2 different points of view, a girl and a boy. The girl wakes up not knowing who she is, which is a really big problem. Fortunately, a police officer actually finds her, and some guy comes to the station claiming to be her dad, and he seems to have all this documentation, so that seems to work out. In the perspective of the boy, it's been about 5 weeks since his girlfriend went missing, and his entire small town thinks that he killed her, and he is determined to look for her because he believes she is still out there. He definitely didn't kill her, and he wants to not only find her, but clear his name. This one had some twists that I did not see coming, and I very much enjoyed it. Next, we have Hellbent, which is the follow-up to Ninth House, which I read last month in anticipation of the 3rd book coming out in September. Being that this is a sequel, I can't really tell you too much about this book, but I can tell you that this character works in something called the Ninth House in Yale, and it's basically their job to police these secret societies and the magic that they're using. I read another horror book this month, and that one is Someone You Can Build a Nest In. This one is so weird and so different from anything that I've ever read before, and I didn't know anything about going into it, and I honestly really loved that for me, because the main character in this one is a shape-shifting monster, and all of the descriptions are incredibly disgusting and fascinating. On my 5-star reads, it was July, so I did my yearly reread of Me and White Supremacy. This is something I've been doing every year since 2020, just to have these definitions and ideas at the forefront of my brain. Penultimately, we have Before Gender. This is a book all about trans history between 1850 and 1950. I believe there were 23 or 24 different people discussed in this book, and it is absolutely fascinating because we have a lot of people in mainstream media that like to say, oh, this is something that's made up, there didn't used to be trans people and now there's trans people people everywhere. And I'm like, no, they've actually always existed. It's just really difficult when people are writing you out of history and, oh look, they exist in history. As for my favorite book of the month, we have The Most Unusual Haunting of Edgar Lovejoy. This one is about two different characters. One is Edgar. He can see ghosts. He's not a really big fan of that. He's pretty scared of that, actually. And then a love interest named Jamie, who actually works creating haunted houses. This was adorable, fantastic. They really had to get to know each other in certain ways. Edgar had to open up about this whole ghost thing and learn more about himself in the process. It was wonderful. The Read Queer All Year prompt for July was All the World's a Stage, so we wanted to read books with theater gaze. For this one, I'm definitely counting Fabulous Bodies as well as The Most Unusual Haunting of Edgar Lovejoy, because Edgar's love interest Jamie does burlesque. And Fabulous Bodies, it's technically about a musician, but there's definitely a very theatrical nature to the entirety of that book. I'm also currently reading a book that I thought I was going to have done by the end of July that I haven't quite finished, but it also definitely would have counted. You'll have to come back next month to see what that was. As for my bingo board from hell, this is what it currently looks like. I haven't marked off anything yet, but I'm getting really close to some more squares. I added 11 more audiobooks, 3 more ebooks, 7 new page-bound badges, and then everything else I haven't really touched yet, but I still have time. If you want to hear me talk more about these books or other books for that matter, the playlist for my weekly entertainment wrap-ups is always linked down below, and like I said, if you want to hear me talk more about these specific books, I've linked exactly which weekly entertainment wrap-up each of those books can be found in. There are a few of those books that I read this week and therefore haven't talked about yet because I don't film those until Sundays, but that is also listed down below as well, and I should hopefully remember to come back and update that link when that video is up. Also, that video is going to be number 500 in that series because I've been doing this for almost 10 years straight. No breaks, no gaps, just every single week, which is pretty cool. If you've read any of these or you now want to read any of these, let me know down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, make sure that you are subscribed, hit the like button, all of those good things. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!